nobody watches more YouTube than I do, especially this time of the year. I'm a big fan of like the hunting public. Those guys are all over the place on public land. I grew up on public land, bow hunting. You know, my kind of pack-in days at the trailhead, carrying your camp on your back, those days are probably behind me, but I still love that stuff. I watch all those guys and keep up with who's posting what, and I've killed elk, killed three elk with my bow, 2 on public land. But I think like 90% of the bow hunting takes place from an ambush spot. I know it does with me. It's a tree stand. Now it can be a ground blind or something. And there's some stuff that I learned. I didn't invent any of this stuff, but there's some stuff I learned a long time ago that can help you up close. I just say it's old school tricks for a new age bow hunter. We're going to talk about some of those. Okay.
I want to go get my arrow.
Go get your arrow. I need to jack them bows up a little bit. I got the poundage all the way off of them. Now, this little thing right here, to me, is a perfect example of what bow hunting should be. It's an old bow. I don't know how old it is. 35 years old. Golden eagle, round wheels, felt all over the place, but I did put a new age arrow rest on it. It's got a whisker biscuit on it. It's got 2 pin sights on it. That's kind of new age, and it's got a peep sight. It's got silencers on it, and it's kind of a combination of old school and new school, but you know what? It works great. It still does everything it's supposed to do, and it's fun. That's what bow hunting and archery is supposed to be, is just fun. Now, right now I'm shooting fixed broadheads that I'll have to sharpen with a calf hair tab, but that don't mean I'm gonna hunt with it. But if I want to, I will. I love doing that. That's how I learned. I just still love shooting with my fingers sometimes. But the coolest line I've ever heard about bow hunting came from Gene Winslow. I was interviewing him one time, and of course they shoot traditional. That's another word I want to talk about. They shoot recurves, but he said bow hunting ain't about how far, it's about how close. And I think in today's world we're kind of missing some of that. Like I said, Gene Winslow's statement when he told me, he said, it's not about how far, it's about how close. That just resonated with me, because it always used to be how close. You know, when Tiger came out with Mossy Oak, he did that because he's a turkey hunter. And of course he bow hunts too, but I mean, I was like, golly, that stuff's gonna be killer up in the tree and all that, because hiding was a big deal. Again, I'm not talking about 60 yards out west calling an elk. I'm talking about fooling with white-tailed deer right around here, and you're dealing with 5- and 6-year-old does with heads this big who's watched you walk and get in your tree stand 100 times. That's a different deal. You got to be stealthy to kill those kind of deer. So getting close, doing all that kind of stuff, those tips that'll help you close the deal, to me it's a big deal. Here's a tip. Now, you won't see this on television all the time. People not worried about it because, you know, we've been making TV a long time. You can edit anything, and once you see that kill shot, man, that was awesome. You think it's easy. Well, it's not. They could have set 50 hours or 100 all season to get that one shot. It ain't like it looks on TV all the time. I try to make sure I set up everything for 20 yards, and I'll promise you, if you kept a journal the whole time you bow hunted, 95% of the good clean kills you had are going to be 20 yards and in. That's just the way I think. Sorry. Anyway, here's a couple things you can do to your bow. Get somewhere, and you got to get somewhere where it's really quiet. I used to do this in the house after everybody's gone to bed, no air conditioners on, no nothing. Just sit down and simply, in total silence, draw it back and listen. There's going to be a cam squeak, a string's rubbing somewhere, maybe a cable's rubbing, maybe this to be lubed on it or something. But just do that in total silence. That one's quiet. It's quiet for a reason. I got this one oiled up, lubed up, waxed up. I just don't want to make any sound at that last second. Every day is going to be different. If it's a 10-mile-an-hour wind or a 12-mile-an-hour wind and it's in perfect conditions, it's high pressure, and your deer's out there and it's actually distracted, well, that's good. But every day's not like that, especially early in the mornings. The thermals are doing whatever they do. It's just deathly quiet. That's when all this makes a difference. Here's something else you should make sure of too, is you're not shooting too much poundage. And I know everybody gets hung up on speeds, 350, 375, and that's all good. It's all awesome. Faster it's going, the less it's dropping, that's good. Again, I'm talking about bad, evil whitetails in close. I think most people shoot too much weight. Back in the day, I used to rig bows, hundreds of them every year when we were selling them down in Natchez, Mississippi at Rex Sporting Goods. And I used to make people do two things. I said, all right, now draw the bow straight back without giving it that big movement up or coming from the bottom.
And then use your back muscles. So like,
You need to be able to just push it away. I don't know if you can do that with your bow or not, but that's a good place to start. And if you really want to make sure you got the exact right poundage, sit down in a chair. I don't have one out here. This may be too high. Pick your feet up off the ground. And then draw it straight back. If you can do that, you ain't got too much poundage. Last thing you want when a deer's there, doe, buck, or otherwise, is have to make a lot of movement. I don't know how far they can see. A turkey can see like 180 degrees, but deer just seem to have a sixth sense. So listen to make sure it's quiet, and then check to make sure you ain't got too much poundage. That's two things. Y'all bring your bows up here. I'm gonna crank them up a little bit. Watch that. A lot of people nowadays shoot fall away arrow rest. I personally don't shoot one. I have a whisker biscuit. And let me tell you something about arrow rest. For the first 20 years I bow hunted, every arrow rest I ever had, I hated. I never found one I liked. Flipper rest, TM Hunters, Hunter Supremes, Burger Buttons, they were all horrible. The first time I saw that whisker biscuit and saw a guy shooting, I went, and I've had one ever since, and I love it. It's simple. I don't have to have anything tied on there that might get hung up. Anyway, it's just bulletproof. Now, the one downside to that thing is you can make a little racket coming back. Well, that was just every day. Back in the day, your arrows made a little noise coming back on your arrow rest. They've got stuff now that you can put on. This is called scorpion venom. It's awesome. Just put a little of that on there, get your rag, and just wipe that arrow down. It is slick as pig snot. I'm just telling you. It'll also pull it out of the target easy. I'm assuming that's why they make this stuff. But I put it on my arrows and leave it on there. I also put a little on the broadhead edges. It'll keep them from rusting. Before we had scorpion venom, old Bubba and I did it with furniture polish. Old English furniture polish. We put it on those arrows right there, and let me tell you something. They would not make a sound. And in the end, that's when everything happens. You know, your skill level's good, you've got a group this big at 30 yards or 50 yards, whatever you're shooting, but in the end, everybody's got to do this to get their bow ready. So the last thing you want is that arrow going when you're coming across that wrist. Scorpion venom, and if you can't find none of that, Old English furniture polish.
Well, at least I hit a deer. I've been hitting what I've been aiming for. I shot it in the butt.
Here's another tip from my old friend Bob Dixon. He's the first one I saw doing this, but every time we'd go bow hunting, and down here in the South, most of the times, or a lot of times, that involves a pine tree. A scaly, loud, bark falling off pine tree. He used to always take an extra long sleeve shirt, and he'd tie that up against the back seat of his lock-on or whatever he's in. He'd hang his lock-on, then he would tie this around it so he could lean back on that. It would keep those from rubbing the bark, and when you stood up, the bark wouldn't fall and fall. That's a great tip right there. And if you don't need that, you can always take it, hang it up in there, and kind of shade your face a little bit. So I always carry an extra long sleeve t-shirt. And again, that may be overkill. Just like waxing your arrows. You don't need to do that if you got a fall away arrow rest. And maybe you think your bow's so fast it don't need to be quiet. But every little thing you can do to help you close that deal at 20 yards is a good thing, because here's my point. Everybody that bow hunts does it different. Guys that hunt out west, you know, they practice a lot at 100 yards now, so, which is unheard of back in the day. But I enjoy watching that. If you're good enough to do that, do it. Down here, everything revolves around an ambush in tight and close, so that's what we practice at. But just remember, I don't care if you use a traditional bow, long bow, recurve, compound, crossbow, anyway. If you buy a hunting license and you go by the rules, we're on the same team. You know, whatever we're doing at this point ain't working. It's declining. So we need to figure out what we can do to get more people in. You hear people talk about CWT, and that is a black cloud. We got to figure it out. A lot of good people working on that, but a much bigger cloud is hunter recruitment. So, you know, anything you can do to make bow hunting more successful, make it easier for people, that's a big deal. And like I say, if you just watch television shows, sometimes you feel like, golly, I'd never be able to run up that mountain with my camp on my back and shoot an elk at 100 yards. You ain't got to do that. You do not have to do that. I couldn't do that anymore. That doesn't mean I don't get just as excited about walking 300 yards down that hill and sitting over a food plot and feeling my knees knock when a big 5-year-old doe walks out looking for me and can't find me. So keep that in mind.
Y'all don't shoot a chicken.
We won't, trust me.
You watching out for the chickens?
Kinda.
I don't feel like chicken tenders tonight.
I do.
Pop would not like that.